the Coalition Oceanographic Authority, had never sent a mission to Earth's deepest trench until now. Master Vrenkol, galactic record holder, stood on the platform, unimpressed.
You will turn back at 8,000 meters, Master Vrenkol. No deeper. That is not a recommendation.
Dr. Okonkwo, I have dived the gravity wells of collapsed stars. Your ocean is not going to frighten me. These humans still flinch at their own shadows. A whole species of cavers who never left the shallows.
The submersible was lowered into heaving gray water. The other three pilots, Orin, Tessa, Kellen, sealed their hatches in grim silence.
Below 8,000 meters. You enter their living room. Remember that.
Vrenkol's finger pressed the calm silence. A polite click, the channel went dead. The four subs descended in a diamond formation, the light above thinning to a needle before vanishing entirely.
She sounded like my grandmother, warning me about the ice wolves. Adorable.
They passed 500 meters. Maeve's last words hung in the cold like a breath that refused to fade.
Active sonar traces at 4,000 meters. Turn back, Master Vrenkol. I read massive mobile signatures.
Sonar ghosts. These humans have never dived deep. Ghosts are all they know.
The depth counter climbed 4,000, 5,000, 6,000. The hull groaned once, then silence. At 7,000 meters, a low-frequency vibration rolled through, a bass note that vibrated the teeth. The subs shuddered. For 5 seconds, the water pressed with intent that had nothing to do with pressure.
That wasn't a current. Something moved against our hull. I felt it.
Maintain formation. The trench has its own breath. We are not insects to be scattered.
The depth counter crossed 8,000 meters. Outside, the water turned blacker than the void.
You've passed the point. May the deep ignore you.
The four subs descended further, into the absolute dark, into Maeve's living room. Below 9,000 meters, the blackness bloomed. Bioluminescent organisms ignited in dense, swirling vines of blue light.
The patterns, they move like a choreography, not random. Something is guiding them.
Just abyssal fauna. Record everything, but do not let your nerves talk louder than your instruments.
The sonar pulsed again. 4 massive returns, each larger than a sub. When the pings focused, the contacts dissolved.
I've never seen a return that size. That's not fauna. That's stop flying away from my ping.
Stop chasing ghosts, Kellen. The deep breeds paranoia. Stay on mission.
The organisms are moving against the current. They're forming a corridor around us.
The bioluminescence swirled in deliberate arcs, escorting the subs deeper with something that felt less like accident and more like permission.
Wide formation. Full sensor sweep. We are here to survey, not admire the lights.
The 4 subs separated, each drifting into a different arm of the trench's darkness. The bioluminescence followed at 9,400 meters. On the third day, Kellen's sub jolted sideways as if struck by a fist.
Impact. Hull breach. No penetration. Something hit us.
The hull groaned. Instruments flickered. Through the water rolled a deep, resonant tone that was not mechanical.
Ascending. Ascending. I am not staying here.
Kellen, respond. What hit you? Kellen.
Kellen's sub shot upward, its emergency beacon painting a desperate arc on the sonar.
He's gone silent. No voice. No telemetry. Just the beacon.
Hold your positions. We do not abandon the mission on one panic.
The 3 remaining subs hung in the black, the bioluminescence now receding to a faint, watchful haze. The strike had been precise, deliberate, and the crew had not glimpsed so much as a ripple.
He fled like a child. But I am not a child. The trench will not break me.
Day 3 lost a pilot to nerves. Continuing descent. I will drag the trench's secret into the light. The depth counter crossed 10,000 meters. The hull began to creak in a voice that was not metal.
I can feel it pressing against the hull. It knows we're here.
Titan formation. Full structural reinforcement. We are not turning back.
The pressure feels intentional, like it's squeezing on purpose.
Outside, the black water thickened, moving against the subs with a slow, muscular resistance.
Let it press. Let it try. This abyss has no idea what it just welcomed.
The 3 subs descended past 10,200 meters, their lights now swallowed by an ocean that had stopped pretending to be empty. Down there, in the absolute cold, they were 3 tiny specks of metal and arrogance, and the trench watched. Day 5, depth 10,200 meters. In the absolute dark, something took hold of both Orin's and Tessa's subs at once.
It's tearing the hull. No breach, but the metal is screaming. Renkal, we've got nothing.
Emergency. Systems are blank. All displays, it's like the sub is being erased.
Their voices died in a wave of static. The 2 subs were ripped upward without pilot command, ascending against all protocols.
Orin, Tessa, acknowledge.
Only static answered. On his sonar, 2 fading blips climbed toward the light, leaving him in an ocean that felt heavier than worlds.
They were not destroyed. They were removed. And I am still here. For what purpose?
He scanned his own hull. No scratches, no dents. Whatever had taken them had deliberately passed him over.
If the trench wants me alone, then alone I go. I won't surface without knowing what it's hiding.
He angled his sub past 10,800 meters, descending into a silence that felt like the sea holding its breath. At 10,800 meters, the silence gained a voice. Whispers scraped the inner hull, not through comms, but through the metal.
It's not language. It's a pressure. A suggestion that I have already been heard.
71 minutes vanished. When systems restored, Vrenkal sat unchanged, but time had passed without him. He checked the recorders. All arrays showed full storage, yet every file was empty, as if never activated.
Not erased. Uncreated. The trench didn't steal the recording. It decreed it never happened.
Hardware flawless. Software logged 0 hours. The mission had paused, and he remembered nothing.
What was taken from me? And why leave the hull intact, the air breathable, my mind still, my own if it is?
Outside the viewport, the blackness pressed in. He was a breath held in a room with no walls.
I am not turning back. I'll see it with my own eyes, record or no record.
He drove deeper into the trench, where the water itself felt like a waiting thought. On the surface, the night platform churned with recovery lights. 2 battered submersibles swung from cranes, water streaming off their hulls.
What do you mean? They won't speak? It's been hours.
They're physically intact. Brain scans normal, but they won't respond. They just stare. That's the trench.
Orin and Tessa were led off in silence, their feet shuffling, their 4 eyes open but empty. Kellen, recovered earlier, sat in the medical bay with the same vacant stillness. No injury, no voice, just a distant stare.
This is exactly what I warned about. The trench doesn't kill, it keeps. Their minds are still down there.
Order Vrenkal to surface. Now. This mission is terminated.
The comms officer sent the order. For a long moment, only static answered. Then a single transmission crackled through.
The mission continues. Do not contact me again.
Voss stood motionless. The most decorated diver in the galaxy was now a rogue signal in Earth's deepest abyss, beyond recall. Past 11,000 meters, the crushing pressure bent the hull beyond its rating. Yet the sub held, as if the water allowed it. The seafloor came into view, not rock, but an endless repeating geometric pattern, like a circuit or a mosaic glowing from within.
This is no geology. This is architecture. For what mind, on what scale, and for what purpose, I cannot fathom.
He triggered the full recording array. Every instrument reported ready. The moment capture began, the data crystals wiped themselves clean.
It doesn't erase. It never permitted recording in the first place. The deep simply does not wish to be seen, and its refusal is physical law.
And then the pattern moved.
It shifted, not like an earthquake, but like a surface adjusting to my presence. Curious, perhaps. Utterly indifferent, more likely.
A presence pressed against his mind, vast, old, without malice or interest. Only awareness. It did not speak, it simply was.
I am not a threat. I am not even a guest. I am background noise, observed and dismissed in the same silent breath.
He continued descending, not by choice, but because the trench itself seemed to expect him to see this through to the end. The hull screamed. Damage alarms flooded the cockpit, yet the crushing pressure eased just enough to allow a choice, not mercy, but a message.
You are small. You are observed. You are tolerated. That was it, the whole statement of our existence here. My team was a warning, not a trophy. Returned to tell us we do not belong here.
With the last of his will, he pulled the emergency ascent lever. The pod seals hissed closed, severing the main sub from himself. The heavy submersible, now a hollow shell, drifted down into the pattern's embrace. Swallowed without a sound, the pod rocketed upward on emergency thrusters. Crush depth warnings reversed, but the trench let him go.
No pursuit, no resistance, just a silent dismissal, as if I were a dream it had already forgotten.
He had no samples, no recordings, only a mind that would never again hold a thought without hearing that vast, indifferent silence.
I must surface. I must tell them. No. I must become the message. The less I say, the more they will understand.
The pod broke through layer after layer of black water, carrying a record holder who now understood how small his records truly were. The lost 71 minutes did not return whole. They came in shards, fragments of sensory overload that his mind had been unable to hold.
I remember movement. Vast curves of flesh and light, older than geology, sliding through the dark without effort or interest. I remember a pressure that was not water, a mind so immense that it had no need to speak. It simply noticed me, cataloged me, and then dismissed me.
He saw with sudden clarity that the human warnings had never been fear. They were the markers of a treaty, a coexistence based on respectful distance.
Maeve was not a coward. She was a signatory. Her species has lived above the deep for millennia. Not because they are blind, but because they know exactly what shares their world.
The pod shuddered upward, the pressure gauge unwound. In Vrenkul's mind, the line formed whole as if the trench had written it.
We are not the apex of anything. That is the truth. The deep wanted delivered.
He tested the phrase in silence. It felt like the only words he would ever need to speak again.
Humanity's ignorance was not ignorance. It was diplomacy. They share this planet with something older, and they have always known to leave it alone.
The first gray light of the surface filtered through the porthole. He was ready to carry the message, but not yet to explain it. On the 11th day, the small pod breached the gray surface east of the platform, bobbing like a discarded shell in the morning chop. Vrenkul crawled out onto the metal grating, his pressure armor shattered with cracks, seawater streaming from every joint of his suit. He had no samples. When the recovery crew opened the pod's cargo hatch, they found only an empty specimen case, its lid ajar. Nearby, Orin, Tessa, and Kellen sat motionless on supply crates. Their bodies had been recovered, their minds had not. Two medics moved toward him. He raised a hand, not in greeting, but refusal, and walked barefoot to the nearest data terminal, dripping a trail across the deck plates. The stylus shook in his grip as he typed. We are not the apex of anything.
Classify all expedition records. There will be no further statement.
The platform crew stood frozen. Even the waves against the columns seemed to go quiet. Vrenkal did not move from the terminal. He stared at the sentence as if it were a wound that needed watching. He requested immediate security protocols. The Coalition Oceanographic Authority had never brought back less from a mission, and never feared those words more. Undersecretary Voss stood in the platform's secure office, holding a tablet with a single sentence burning across its screen. The air tasted of ozone and disbelief.
What is this? Not the apex of anything. You held the galactic depth record. You led an elite team. Now you give me one line and demand classification.
Vrenkal did not move. His gaze rested somewhere through Voss, beyond the bulkheads, still fixed on the dark water.
I ordered you to surface 5 days ago. You defied a direct order. Now you owe me an explanation, Master Diver.
The door opened without ceremony. Dr. Maeve Okonkwo entered, her lab coat still damp from the morning watch, her expression deeply weary but unsurprised.
He's telling you what every deep-sea researcher on Earth already knows. We don't go down there. Never have.
Voss stood as if struck. The silence that followed was not empty. It was the echo of a secret kept by an entire species for millennia.
You mean humanity has known, always known, about what's down there?
Not known. Coexisted with. The ocean is deeper than water. We've always understood that the abyss belongs to something else, and we respect the boundary.
Vrenkal finally turned his head, meeting Maeve's steady gaze. No words passed, but in that look, Voss saw the transfer of a burden too heavy for any report. The Coalition Council convened an emergency closed session. Earth's ocean data projected across the chamber in red, a wound on the star map. Voss lifted the tablet with the one-line report. His voice did not waver as he moved for a vote. No one debated.
We classify this trench not as a hazard to navigation, but as a sovereign border we do not cross.
By unanimous vote, Earth's oceans were added to the Galactic Restricted Access Registry, ranked deeper than the Outer Rim death zones. After the session, Voss found Vrenkal in the observation lounge, a figure of cracked armor and hollow eyes, watching the sea through rain-streaked glass.
The Authority offers you repatriation to your homeworld, with honors intact. Or you may remain on Earth under continued observation. Choose.
I will stay.
He stood, walked past Voss down the long corridor, past the bay where his decommissioned sub sat silent and dripping, and pushed through the outer hatch into the salt wind. No one stopped him. The master diver, who had mocked Earth's oceans, now walked toward them, barefoot, with nowhere else to be. He headed east along the coast, toward a cliffside he had glimpsed on a survey chart, a place where the ocean beat the rock without asking permission. Months passed. On a Pacific cliffside, a small wooden cabin took shape, funded by the last of his expedition credits. He built it himself. The ache of labor kept the deeper ache quiet, and that was mercy. Every evening he sat at the window and watched the tide. He never touched the water. The local fishermen avoided him, an alien who stared at the ocean with a hollowed-out gaze. Only one man did not turn away. An old fisherman began leaving a fresh-caught fish, wrapped in kelp, on the cabin doorstep.
He never knocks, never waits. It's like he leaves an offering for the sea. And I am just part of the landscape.
One morning, Vrenkal saw the old man mending a net on the beach. He raised a hand. The man nodded and returned to his work. Something shifted in Vrenkal. Not healing, just a slight lessening of the frost. The fish kept appearing. In return, Vrenkal left the empty basket out with a small stone inside. The next day, it was gone. He settled into a sparse rhythm. Wake, watch the sea. Eat, watch the sea. Sleep, the deep had spoken. The cliff listened. A storm rolled in from the Pacific, black and thick as the trench. Vrenkal stood by the window, watching lightning fork the horizon. The wind shrieked all night. and the sea answered with a low, thrumming roar that rattled the cabin windows. Vrenkal did not sleep. At dawn, the storm had passed, leaving a soaked, battered calm. On his doorstep, beside the daily fish, lay a folded paper held down by a smooth black stone.
He unfolded the paper with damp fingers. The script was human, written in a slow, careful hand. Bad weather makes the old things restless. We sit and wait, like always. No signature, none needed.
Vrenkal looked up and stared at the vast gray sea. The old fisherman was not leaving gifts. He was sharing a vigil that stretched back generations.
This man's family, for centuries, has known exactly what I discovered. They didn't forget. They taught their children to wait. I am not the lone broken survivor. I am one more sentinel, and he has just handed me the watch.
He went back inside and placed the note on the mantel, next to a chipped seashell, the first thing he had ever kept as a gift. He sat and watched the tide come in, no longer a fugitive from the deep, but a watcher who had finally found his purpose. Years slipped by like the tide. Vrenkal's skin paled to the gray of driftwood, and the cabin became a landmark on the cliff. One afternoon, Eamon climbed the path with a steaming kettle and 2 chipped cups. They sat on the porch, side by side, watching the ocean in a silence that needed no filling.
My granddad always said we share the planet, not own it. Reckon that's why the deep lets us fish the shallows.
Vrenkal turned his head slowly, meeting the old fisherman's eyes. The sea was the only voice for a long moment.
We share the planet. That is the treaty. The entire truth of our existence, wrapped in a fisherman's afternoon.
He gave a single nod. No more was needed. Eamon poured the tea. The steam rose between them like an offering, and neither spoke. Vrenkal looked back at the sea, and his 4 eyes softened for the first time in decades. The fisherman's simple truth had closed the wound. He was not the apex. He was not nothing. He was a keeper. The tea cooled in their cups. Eamon's voice, rusty as an old hinge, began to fill the quiet.
Granddad taught me to read the sea. Not just the weather. The deep ones leave signs. A ripple with no wind. A sudden chill in the water.
Vrenkal listened, his 4 eyes fixed on Eamon, absorbing a knowledge passed down through generations.
They move slow, miles down, but sometimes they stir when the bioluminescence comes up wrong. Too bright, too regular, you know they're close.
A memory of the trench's unnatural lights flickered through Vrenkal's mind, but he did not flinch.
So we stay in the shallows, not out of fear, out of respect. The deep is theirs, the surface is ours. We share.
Eamon gestured with his cup, as if the whole Pacific were a neighbor's yard.
This is not superstition. This is a field guide, and I am only now learning to read it.
The old fisherman looked at him, eyes crinkling.
You get it now. That's good. Took my family 100 years, but you got it in a decade.
The sun lowered to the horizon, spinning the sea into glassy copper. Without a word, Eamon set his cup down and rose from the porch chair.
You are not the first to come here and stay. The sea has a way of keeping those who understand.
Vrenkal's 4 eyes tracked him, old and luminous. Then, for the first time that afternoon, his voice came, a thin, unused rasp.
I understand enough.
The words were bare as river stones, but they held no tremor, no echo of the shattered diver who had crawled from the trench. Eamon gave a slow, final nod and extended his weathered hand across the space between their chairs. Vrenkal looked at the hand, calloused, sea-salted, and reached out with his own. The clasp was tentative, then firm. The first deliberate touch he had exchanged with another being since the abyss. It held for 3 quiet heartbeats. Then Eamon withdrew, gathering the empty kettle with a gentle clink. He walked back down the grassy path, a silhouette against the darkening sea. Vrenkal remained on the porch, his hands still warm. Night fell slow over the Pacific. Vrenkal did not light the lamps. He let the dark come. The sea was a black mirror, breathing in long, slow sighs against the cliff. He watched it without the old dread. What lived below was not a threat. It was a neighbor he had finally learned to respect. The cabin window glowed steadily behind him, a single point of warm light on the dark coast from the sea's perspective. He was a small figure on a cliff, a keeper of the boundary, no longer a trespasser. The breeze stirred the grass. A single gull called far out over the water, and the sound was not a warning but a lullaby. Vrenkal closed his 4 eyes for a moment, not to sleep but to listen to the deep, immense quiet he had once feared. When he opened them, the ocean was unchanged, indifferent, endless, endless, and that was the most comforting thing of all. The camera pulled back slowly, over the cliff, over the cabin, until the 2 chairs and the single light were just a speck against the vast Pacific. Here, at the edge of everything, a broken diver had become a silent guardian, and the ancient sea simply continued, as it always had, a new year. Eamon's boat cut through morning mist, and Vrenkal held the tiller with a fisherman's easy grip. Spring found him in a tiny garden beside the cabin, dirt under his nails, planting seeds that asked nothing of the sea. Summer brought the old fisherman uphill with a basket of apricots and a grin that creased every line on his face. Winter wrapped the cabin in stillness. 2 chairs sat before the fire, and 2 cups never cooled. The seasons cycled like tide. Eamon's hair went fully silver. Vrenkal's skin gained the patina of driftwood. They sat often in the late gold, not speaking, sharing only the view and the quiet knowledge of witnesses. Decades passed. The cabin weathered storms and sun. The cliff held. The ocean had not changed in a million years. One evening on the boat, Eamon passed the tiller to Vrenkal for the last time, and neither needed the word. The porch now held 2 worn chairs, permanently shaped by long habit. 2 faded teacups waited on the railing, and the old alien walked down to the cliff edge each evening, alone or not, and watched the water, and was not afraid. The cabin fell quiet. Rain washed the teacups, the wind dusted the chairs, and still the porch faced the sea. 2 weathered chairs, 2 cups faded by sun and salt. The ocean stretched to the edge of the world. Far below, a small boat drifted on the water, empty or perhaps with a single old man resting his oars. The cliff held no footprints, only the grass, bending in the breeze and the endless murmur of the Pacific. Inside, the note still rested on the mantel beside the chipped shell, a message from a fisherman to a diver who became a keeper. A single teacup remained, brimming with rainwater, reflecting the gray sky. No graves, no memorials, just 2 chairs, side by side, watching the water that watched them back. And from the deep, no answer came, only the slow, indifferent tide. We are not the apex of anything. Fade to black.